The year is 2008, and I'm getting a report here that Katy Perry kissed a girl and apparently liked it. This was also the year when all of our favorite Hollywood writers went on strike. Shia LaBeouf swung through the kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Electronic Gaming Monthly ended its 2-decade run as America's #1 video game magazine. We're not here to nostalgically mourn and reminisce about the death of print journalism. No, wait, actually we are. Because today we're not only counting down Electronic Gaming Monthly's worst reviewed games of 2008 and 2009, but also ending our 40-episode retrospective of the magazine's iconic run. Yeah, rest in peace, EGM. When Electronic Gaming Monthly first reviewed Destroy All Humans back in 2005, they thought it was fine. It managed to earn a solid enough 7 out of 10 from the critics, mostly on the strengths of the ridiculously awesome concept. The editors also liked the 2006 sequel, though worried that the franchise may be doing little more than treading water. 4 years and that many games later, and EGM is officially over THQ's B-rate sci-fi series. Yeah, a killer concept alone was not enough to keep this franchise from drowning, and it seemed painfully clear that the developers were not going to do what was needed to take Destroy All Humans to the next level. Andrew was quick to note that open-world action games have come a long way since the days of the PlayStation 2. But you wouldn't know it from Destroy All Humans' Path of the Furon, a game that feels both woefully dated and curiously incompetent. The aesthetics fall equally flat. While Furon's certainly the shiniest Destroy All Humans to date, it's an absolute mess in motion. Textures load in close proximity, the speed's constantly in flux, and structures pop out of nowhere as you approach them via the jetpack. He was also frustrated by the tepid missions, repetitive action, easy campaign, and complete lack of online modes. It's a game that feels like a relic of the past, and not in a fun, nostalgic kind of way. Between the unwillingness to move the franchise forward and the rampant technical problems, Destroy All Humans, Path of the Furon earns a score so cheesy that you can practically see the string attached to the 3.5 out of 10. When Electronic Arts secured the exclusive rights to the NFL, many worried that it would lead to years of barely upgraded Madden installments. In reality, what they probably should have feared was half-ass games like NFL Tour, an over-the-top football game so bad that it makes you yearn for the days of NFL Street. Ton explained that the 7-on-7 game is semi-fun on offense, with a simplified reversal system that'll have you tearing through tackles if your button timing's right. But the game completely falls apart on defense. I couldn't stop any team over the course of 4 downs. In part, that's because the running backs won't go down. I counted 9 broken tackles once, and I simply couldn't find a way to counter the endless strings of dekes and dodges. When Garnet fired up the game, he worried that he had accidentally fired up an old Dreamcast game. That offers no excuse for the utter lack of creativity on display here, such as the generic beach volleyball stadiums for each city. Nor does it explain only giving me 20-some-odd pre-made faces to choose from for my custom character. When even back in the days of the Blitz heyday, the developers knew that you needed a little balance between offense and defense. NFL Tour's last team with the ball wins emphasis on offense deflates whatever air the pigskin had left in it. With an average score of 3.5 out of 10, NFL Tour ties as the 4th worst reviewed game in EGM's history to be published by Electronic Arts. Speaking of which, here's a fun fact. Skate It was the exact moment that I gave up on the Nintendo Wii. While all my friends and colleagues were still fully bought into the futuristic promise of motion controls. It was this unplayable spin-off from Electronic Arts that broke the illusion for me. After spending way too much time struggling with even the simplest tricks, I realized that life was too short, and motion controls have a long way to go before they're an adequate replacement for the good old controller. After that, I have to admit I never looked at the Wii the same way ever again. Apparently, I wasn't the only one, because Electronic Gaming Monthly's review echoes my frustrations word for word. Mike complains that skate it is what happens when a developer doesn't understand the system's limitation and overestimates an audience's abilities. This is most apparent in the game's party play feature, where you and a group of friends take turns skating against each other. Not all at once, mind you. You need to share a single Wii remote. In one of these scenarios, I had to put together the best line by executing a series of tricks. So I drew a circle in the air with the Wiimote and got a pop shove it. I did it again and got a viral heel flip. A third time, a kick flip. The same undifferentiated motion resulted in 3 different tricks. That's cool if I'm messing around, but not if I'm trying to execute one specific trick. He complained that even the slightest twitch of the Wiimote would create wholly new effects, and frequently, it's one you don't even want. Oh, and before you ask, Skate It is actually worse on the Wii's balance board. But look, no matter how you play it, Skate It is a tragically bad game that gets even the most basic fundamentals wrong, which is why it ultimately ended up scoring a 3.5 out of 10. For most people, Legendary is one of those no-name first-person shooters that has been completely forgotten to time. For me, however, I think I'm always going to remember being introduced to this terrible game at an off-site E3 event where I interviewed the developer in a very hot and incredibly small hotel room. It was called Legendary the Box at the time, and the preview build they had me play just wouldn't stop crashing. This happened 4 or 5 times, with that poor game designer getting increasingly frazzled with each subsequent freeze. There I was, sitting on a bed, watching the developer break down in front of me as he's having the worst day of his professional life. And all I could do was wonder if watching him frantically swap out systems and make small talk would ultimately be more fun than actually playing the game. And as it turns out, I was right to be concerned. Because even with the shorter name, Legendary is a Pandora's box of terrible ideas that are executed in the worst ways possible. You know, I feel a little bad for Philip, who reviewed Legendary without the funny image of watching the developer scramble around in that tiny little hotel room. For Philip, it's just another crummy game, and not this great story that he keeps cramming into conversations, no matter how inappropriate it is at the time. In his review, he pinpoints a couple of the problems that keep Legendary from stacking up to the other AAA shooters on the market. First, it takes linear level designs to the greatest extreme I've ever seen in a shooter. A single tiny path through the short tutorial area in the halls of a museum is forgivable, but any illusion of reality shatters when our main character Charles Deckard exits onto the street of New York City, only to have debris fall around him in such a way that leaves only one lone, cramped passageway to the next building. Philip also hated the battles against the mythical boss creatures, the cheap deaths, the subpar graphics, and the bland selection of guns. Legendary is a bad game from an inexperienced developer that would later go on to kill both the Ninja Gaiden and Lost Planet franchises. Yeah, you almost have to go out of your way to do that much damage. Yeah, leave it to Konami to ruin both Castlevania and fighting games. When the company that gave us Contra and Metal Gear announced that they were going to be making a one-on-one fighter based on one of their most popular and enduring franchises, longtime fans of the Belmonts got excited. Unfortunately, that excitement was short-lived, because you could tell that Castlevania Judgment was going to be about as much fun as having a stake rammed through your heart repeatedly just from looking at the first few screenshots. Somehow, things only got worse when you saw this dumpster fire of a 3D fighting game in motion. This should have been another awesome exclusive for Nintendo's newest system. But with a D- score and 4 paragraphs of hate, this Konami bomb was the poster child for what not to do on the Wii. Oh boy, Richard needed a whole lot more than garlic and holy water to review this newest Castlevania game. Beyond the strange art direction, Judgment suffers from jarring mechanics that disregard established fighting game conventions. The uncompromising camera displays the action in a bizarre, disconcerting manner that tracks players in a 3D arena filled with environmental hazards. And in combat, the camera's way too difficult to control. The camera isn't the only shortcoming. Character design stands at the center of every fighter, and unfortunately for Castlevania's cast of vampires and vampire killers, Judgment leans dangerously over the edge. In the end, Castlevania Judgment is a strange misstep for a beloved series. Given the awesome characters and the amazing art that has always gone hand to hand with the franchise, it's baffling that the company could make a fighting game this bad. I mean, it's one thing to publish a bunch of Hudson stinkers, but just as Richard said, this is one of Konami's most beloved franchises. With a score of 2.5 out of 10, Castlevania Judgment clearly doesn't need any blood in order to suck. Hey, thanks for watching the series finale of Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst. If you liked what you saw here, then you'll be happy to know that we're going to be crunching even more numbers in the new year. But for now, we're out of EGM issues to cover. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your least favorite game of 2008 and 2009? Go ahead and let me see your picks in the comments below. So, seeing as this is the finale, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to go through each of these 40 episodes. When I started this series back in 2017, I had no idea that it was going to take this long and that people would be so passionate about the project. You know, it feels good knowing that there are other people who are interested in analyzing old reviews. We'll be back early in 2021 to talk about where we're going to go next, but before that happens, I'm going to post a super cut of all 40 of the introductions. You know, the part in the beginning where I go, "The year is." I'm just going to have a whole video full of them, just fully bingeable. I'm actually really excited to watch these back to back and see how they've changed over the years. Also, if you've missed any of the episodes, then there should be a link on the screen right now with the full playlist. Now that it's over, it's fun to start at the beginning again, and just keep watching it every day, over and over. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey, and I can't wait to see what the new year brings us. Happy holidays, and see you in 2021. Till then.